name is Nicholas Robbie William, better known as Shakespeare. I'm from Uptown Rebels, where they call in Vieux, Bali's in St. Lucia. Growing up in St. Paul's Lane was extremely educational. Educational because, for goodness sake, I was between my mom and dad. My dad was based in Peru and Vieux. My mom was based in Larry Shoes and Vieux. And you know, during that time you had parental difficulties where the mother is fighting over raising the child, the father is fighting over raising the child. I was caught up in that. But raising up in Bodizin, Hero, and Larry Shoes was very much a big embodiment part of me, because every aspect of the places that I was raised, I learned something beautiful. For example, in Larry Shoes we did a lot of farming, potatoes, with my stepfather, by the way, which I love. He loved from a very early age. So you see, when love connects, love circulates, and love impacts, you see what kind of imprint it leaves on one. But back to my growing up. Then in Peru, my dad, he was a hustler. He was a hard worker as well, ambitious man, just as Mr. Benji. But my dad, at one time, he owned a horse, and he used to give me a ride on the horse, and sometimes he used to carry me on his shoulder when I was just a little boy. At one time, my dad opened a box of diamond cigarette. He put it in his mouth and he lit it, and once he put me to sleep on a rock. And then I did the same thing, and when I was about to light it, he said, "Hey, Ishmael, boy, what you doing?" And he take it from me. Well, you see how the children learns? The father did it, and the child followed. So it was. And back to growing up in Uptown Rebels, oh, it was the cream of the crop. Because in Uptown Rebels, better known as Bodizin, St. Paul's Lane, it so happens that the football field used to be there by LU5, the Samuels Lambert area. And I remember going there with my friends to watch games. We used to sit on the top of the wall of the cemetery, and then whenever the elders came, they didn't even have to murmur a word. We just unintentionally and unwillingly got off the wall to make way for them, because had we stayed there, we would get to know why we shouldn't have stayed there. So we did it before it actually happened. And that's the first place we had a football field in Vieux during the time I was a youth. And then we used to sit there sometimes or stand there and watch religiously, whether it was cricket, walaba, or football. And my goodness, what an experience it was. That's why growing up in Vieux was something in itself, because then we had the docks. You know, the dock meaning the harbor where tourist ship and the stevedoring work was going on a rotation basis. The banana was on. Halcyon days came about. The airport, the brewery, and the various restaurants. So Vieux was, as they say, was jamming, so to speak. Vieux was Vieux. But you know what? In spite of the fact that Vieux was Vieux, and we can't forget the beach that was such an intricate part in our lives growing up. From Okwe to Washado, we used to run up that thing like as if our life depended on it. And then when we were too hot to run again or too tired to run, the beach, the wonderful opportunity, the access of the beach was right there. We just threw ourselves into it, and we felt so comforted by the beautiful blue waters, whether it was beautifully blue or a little dirt with the seaweed. At that time we didn't have as much seaweed as now, but boy, it was something. You know, I'm by the St. Paul's Anglican Church in Vieux, and the reason why I chose this church and this location is because there is a world of history that surrounds the Anglican church, the Anglican churchyard, and the surrounding neighborhood area. Because when I was growing up, and you know, I'm starting from small, from a little boy, you know, I was forbidden to attend to football. And the reason why was because our mothers at the time didn't see there was a need for us to go play football. But every opportunity that we got with our friends, whether it's to jump over the yard or sneak in one way or the other way, I find myself doing that just to go and play the sport that I really love. And the fact of the matter is, we started with no balls to forming our own balls with nylon bags, taping it up the same as we did for cricket ball. I mean, we practically took nylon bags, we rolled tapes over it to form the big football, to find ourselves in the little areas in our community just to play football. Why football? What is there in football? Because you see, that's how our passion for the game came about. That's how it unfolds. That's how it came about. Me loving the game. I could not get enough of it. And like I said, St. Paul's Anglican Church, and ball is in, to be more specific, is when it all started. We played pick-up games, even next side, when the square before it was refurbished and rebuilt. We used to constantly play football in the square as well. We played on flat street even before it was fully paved. The way police used to come behind us in the square and we used to run, and by the time the police is gone, we're back there. But all in all, growing up into that beautiful game called football was so much more than the game itself. It gave us access to making friends, access to having fun, access to learn stuff, you know. I remembered playing for the RC Boys School. That was one of the utmost reward for us playing football in Vieux, because RC produced so many talented and dynamite footballers under the tutelage coach of Vibert Joseph, which I believe there should be a statue erect by outside of they should leave it as Friendship Park instead of Philip Margie Marseille grounds. They need to bring back Friendship Park to the name of that field. But like I was saying, the Vieux Boys School, football was such an intricate part of the school then. On top of our education aspect, of course, was more important. But we had some fine players: Marciano, Prince, Ibra, Ferris, and the list goes on. You know, some players were underrated and some was overrated. But then again, I started playing for the RC Boys School, and that's where organized and competitive sport started for me. RC Boys School used to go anywhere and everywhere in St. Lucia, and nobody used to beat us. We used to beat everyone and everybody that we played against. There was even a theme song that was developed from the school. It used to go, RC King Billy, you want a goal, King Billy. No, 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 Castries no. No, 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 Castries no. Before they tell us, or they told us who won the game, once that song was being sung by the players, we knew the game was, we won the game anyway. They didn't have to tell us that. But then there was a area by Mamordes. You know, there was areas that you could play football and create a game of football no matter where you lived in Beaufort. And but that was part of my growing up. You know, from RC, the first team I ended up playing for was Falconites before Uptown, which was managed and by Eldridge Stephen, one of the best managers. No, not one of the best football manager I've ever had in my life was Eldridge Stevens, because Eldridge Stephen was a former semi-professional. He even played for the national team, St. Lucia national team, that is. And he was a flamboyant, excited player. He was a striker, and that man who had speed, he had strength, he had everything, because he was one of the first Beaufort players who played for the national team together with D. Algenan. Just imagine Eldridge Stevens playing on trials, and both on trials and playing for the national team with Algenan. If you think Eldridge had nothing to offer, Algenan was the next man who they selected with him. So, you know, growing up, man, there was so much available for us, for me in particular, in Beaufort. And that's where the origin of the love and the passion for the sport of football came about. Even this churchyard, we were continuously being run after. Police got involved when we used to play the little boys growing up, you know, and they used to come and stop us. Even though some of us used to go to the church and some of our parents were members of the church, but we find a way to come back. You know, the game of football was everything to us. It means so much for us, and it gave us so much. So that's why our love, my passion and excitement of the game developed. For football, better known as soccer. Football. I tell you, that game means so much to me that when I hear it, I get excited. When I see it, I get excited. When I feel it, I get even more excited, because it's the sport and the game of the people. Football, man. The excitement, the technicalities, the techniques, the basics, the sporting medical entities that are involved, the commercial aspect of it. But all in all, it has given me so much, and it means so much to me that I love it. I love football. I've done some coaching in it. I've played for the St. Lucia national team. I almost get a call up for professional league in the United States until the team went bankrupt, and they sent me another letter that due to financial difficulties that the team will no more be in existence. But tell me, that game called football, I love it, man. It has given me so much. It means so much to me. There have been times where when I was in the United States, I called in sick because I knew a solid and incredible game of football was about to come on. Can you believe that? It's all about the love for the game. But boy, I tell you. So once I was playing the game of football here in Beaufort, St. Lucia, I decided, because I've gotten and learned so much from it, that how can I give back to my community? Hence the reason why I went into coaching. And coaching to me of the game of football is another passion, because I honestly believe anything that you have acquired and you enjoy and you have a passion for, it is just as loving to share out with others. And that's what took me to coaching both here in St. Lucia, in Seattle, USA, and also in Anchorage, Alaska. That's the name Does the football club named Dames ring a bell to you? Oh my goodness. When I was growing up, you had such teams as Dames, Islanders, Spurs, Gazelles, and all those teams from the south, which is Vieux, St. Lucia. And quite honestly, Dames was the team that left the biggest impact on me. And the reason why was simply because they had the best, some of the best players from Vieux playing for them. Because keep in mind, Dames had access to financial backup. Guys like Sampolo and Vivian Molinero. At one time, Sampolo was the main guy on the dock where he was in charge of the cargo boats, both loading and offloading, and he used to be responsible for his crew to take care of the offloading and loading aspect, the stevedores you call them then. So if you were playing for Dames, you could get a job, which was wonderful back in those days. And Dames was very organized. You had guys like Roy Alexander and some other ladies and guys as well who used to take care of the organizational aspect. And they had some fine talents, guys like Kai, Alginan, Marcus Andrews, Benji, Ibra, Ferris when they played for Dames too, Zico, Prosper, and a number of other players. But Dames had the biggest impact on me in terms of clubs. And then from there, you had such clubs as Gazelles, you had Santos, you had Dreads, you had Wadat Passy, Uptown Rebels, Roots Alley, Ghetto Lions, Belvedere Strikers. And back in those days, the football, community football, was so vibrant, so intricate to the sports in general in St. Lucia. And I honestly believe it is due to the downfall of the community-based teams that we see football on the island of St. Lucia is at such a downward spiral that it is. Whereas we have the opportunity now that the availabilities are plentiful, and that should not be the case, but it is. And part of the reason why I believe is because we have so many square pegs in wrong holes that they don't really have the passion and the love for the sport, but they are the one dictating where the sport is and where it should go, which is wrong. But then again, it's gonna have to be a group and a community to island-wide based consultation to change that for the future youth. But football, man, football. The thing is that we started on almost a bare field before we had Friendship Park that came. Friendship Park came about through the Venezuelan government, and when that happened, I worked at when they were reorganizing the field to make it into a better field from where it was and the state that it used to be in. And we also got paid in US dollars through a guy named Salas from Venezuela. But he gave us a brand new field, you know, all paved out, all leveled out, and they fenced it at that time with kind of a mesh wire with a lot of pipes that strengthened it, which are the same pipes some people took in terms of going and set up their antennas, because of course they had no appreciation for why those things came about and where it came about and the reason why they came about. But then again, I remember upon the completion of the field, the Venezuelan government sent the national team, their national team, down to Vieux and played against the Vieux 11 back in those days, keep in mind, Vieux had one kind of brilliant players. And keep in mind, Vieux St. Lucia has produced some of the finest talents when it comes to football in St. Lucia. To talk about football in St. Lucia and exclude Vieux is incomplete. When the Venezuelan team came, they played to a 0-0 draw game against the Vieux 11. Then they played against Castries and some other team from the north. And of course they got licks. I was so glad that happened. Not the mere fact that they got licks, but because of the fact that Vieux at that time could have test and put up with the Venezuelan national team. You know how proud that made me feel as a young boy? Oh my goodness, words cannot express. But Vieux in itself has produced some of the finest talents, like I said. And growing up here playing football, it has been a wonderful experience. You know, the Green Giants. You know, at one time I witnessed a school by the name of the senior secondary school at that time, it used to be called. They played against Castries and they defeated Castries 3-1. And the caliber of players that was representing Vieux, they could go anywhere around the island to a fact around the world and put them make their presence felt. You know, that's how good Vieux was in terms of producing some of the finest ballers St. Lucia has ever seen. Uptown Rebels, the Uptown Rebels. How my football career started with Uptown Rebels. You know what really had me to wanting desperately to play for Uptown Rebels? Interestingly enough, there was a soccerama on the senior secondary school grounds in Mauritius, where the team I played for then, Falconites football team, we played against Uptown Rebels. Uptown Rebels was on the formation stage where a number of players, with the exclusion of some of the top players from Uptown Rebels, Bawley's Lane, St. Paul's Lane, you know, they represented Uptown Rebels in that soccerama, whilst me and Erof Valley was representing Falconites. So when we ended up playing finals with Uptown Rebels back then, keep in mind Ferris and them was playing for them back then, Orly, Payo and those guys, Apan, Mentor, which was the best keeper Uptown Rebels have ever had, Gregory Puel Mentor. And then afterwards Agouti came about, Apan, Guille, but Agouti, my oh my, what a brilliant talent that he was. There was, other than Puel, there was absolutely no match. So back to the Soccerama finals when we played Uptown Rebels. Uptown Rebels played with somewhat of a khaki shots. That thing was so hard, you could swear those guys were just playing, representing a country team, a farming team, because, you know, I've never seen up to this day any football team played with such material, shots with such material, and a tie-dye t-shirt. And Uptown Rebels defeated us. And that sent me into my thinking mode. I was like, how the heck that we've been onward playing before Uptown Rebels had even decided to come up with a team, and they defeated us at a Soccerama final. So right there and then I said, you know something, I got to change uniform and change club. I cannot be one of the original guys who decided let's have a team in the neighborhood and I'm playing for the opposite team which was Falcon Eyes. Nothing against Falcon Eyes, but Falcon Eyes gave me a lot, and they conditioned me for a lot, prepared me for a lot. So that's where my career with Uptown Rebels came about, and the rest was history, as they say. Playing with brilliant talents like Ronald Ferris Norton, Felix Eroff St. Rhodes, Ollie Norton, like I said, Gregory Mentor, Patrick Bread Joseph, and the list goes on. You know, it was something. Happen and Titty Boy, better known as Kaye. Uptown Rebels was something else, you know. We had some wonderful talents, and the fact that it was such a family community team, it really solidified us, because keep in mind, we was friends first, and then it turned out to be playing for a team with that same family friendship kind of relationship. Because it was because of that kind of attitude. And one thing I have to mention is that we used to get up and train early in the morning. Guys used to send rocks and stones on top of your mother's house top, the roof, and then your mothers used to always quarrel with me, saying that you can't say Jean, you'll tell your friends, when I'm sleeping, pour pas vous wash on la tête kaila, stop sending stones on the top of the house. You know, that kind of dramatizing, realistic kind of in your face thing. And we told them that my mother used to say, you know, quit sending stones on the top of the roof. But hey, as if that will have stopped, that continued. Sometimes by the time 4:30 in the morning we got up to go and train, the grass was soaked with dew, and then sometimes we used to find ourselves doing sit-ups and push-ups, finding cardboards and put on there. But Uptown Rebels, where we really start seeing the fruit of our labor, the fruit of our discipline and hard work coming into fruition, was when we defeated Dames twice. The first time they said, oh, it was a flute. It was a fluke, not a flute. We were playing music, but with the ball, not with the actual flute. And the first time they had brought in champagne, they ended up drinking it. You know, even though they didn't win, they drank their champagne, rightfully so, it was theirs. But the second time when we defeated Dames, it wasn't easy to defeat Dames, because Dames was a formidable club. You know, Dames was Dames, you know. But the second time we defeated Dames, the very same champagne that they brought with them to enjoy was given to us. Just imagine the impact that we must have left with them. But Uptown Rebels, we were the formidable club at the time in Beaufort. You know, whatever the teams that we played with, they didn't always get licks, but most of the time they get licks. And you know who was our fiercest rivals? Belvedere Strikers. There was a fit group of incredible players who was just passionate, determined, you know, to just see that whatever they do it in a destructive manner. So Belvedere Strikers was one of our fiercest rivalry. You know, Square United. I know I didn't mention Square previously, but I have to give kudos to Square, because they had some fine talents. You know, our neighbor. So, you know, Uptown Rebels, then we played all in the various outside communities, and then until we form ourselves as such a dynamite team to reckon with, we end up playing CONCACAF. There was only 2 teams at that time playing CONCACAF representing St. Lucia. The Uptown Rebels. I say the Uptown Rebels because it's not the Uptown Rebels of present. It's the Uptown Rebel of the past. And we went through so much as a team, because we were looked on as the no going to anywhere by society, especially people of Beaufort. And part of that was because of our own form. We used to give jokes to people, you know, take our excitement and our fun on people in a jokingly manner, and that didn't go very well in society. So we were looked upon as the the outcast, the downcast, whatever you want to call it. But that didn't stop us from prolonging our careers until when we played CONCACAF, and we was a formidable foe in CONCACAF, because like I said, it was Uptown Rebels and VSA DC that represented St. Lucia. Our first game was against Golden Stars in Martinique, and then that first game we were defeated 3-1. And then our return league game, which was at Mendo Philip Park, we defeated them 1-0. It was a brilliant performance by us. I remember an underrated player in Dutch, better name as Falcao. It was an assistant ball from me that he just released really flat past the Martinican goalkeeper, and we defeated them 1-0. But I tell you, man, Uptown Rebels at that time, and even up to now, we are still a team to reckon with. My career with the national team started being called on tryouts for the St. Lucia under 19 when I played for Falconites. It was me, Terry Clovis, and Felix Hero of St. Rose. The three of us were called up. Back then, Azwa Dot Mozanto was one of the coaches. And I remember the training, playing for Falconites back then. I got called, myself and Irov got called up on tryouts, and Terry Clovis, who used to play for Belvedere Strikers, talk about my first rivalry. Anyway, the tryouts were being taken place on VG grounds. Back then it was just the bare sap, as they call it, the sap. And it so happens that I got selected on the team. They sent me down to pack my bag, and upon my return I was told that but as what Mozanto told me, he called me aside and said, "Shakespeare, I'm sorry, man, the fellas went about and picked their final team. I am no more on the team." Now, as a youth, if you want to be break down, chewed up and throw away, that did that to me. I was like, then why? I mean, did you know how excited we used to sleep with the balls underneath our head? We were just in love with soccer. It was our first love. And when I got that message, I went back and told my manager and some of my friends who could not believe it at that time that I was knocked down on the team. They could not believe that I didn't make the team, and that like I said before, totally broke me down. But I didn't let it crush me. I didn't let it stop there. It gave me more of urge, not a desperation, but an urge to continue that same passion, wanting to play for the national team. And that same following year, I ended up playing for the national team, which I had a short but wonderful career there. I played with such players like Ronald Ferris Norton. The short time that I played for the national team, we had 5 players from VIEUX. Myself, Ibra, Ferris, Cloud Spoyot, and Irov. That was one of the first time in a long time that VIEUX had 5 key players on the national team, and boy, we was a force to reckon with. I remember the final game that I played for the national team against St. Vincent, which was the present champions of the time of the Windward Island tournament. We invited them to Mendo Philip Park, where we defeated them 5-1, and that was the game I got a hat trick. One of the first games in my career, or the only game in my soccer career that I had a hat trick playing football, especially for St. Lucia. and that was a moment to reckon with. And from that, I got the Gary Silber's Man of the Match trophy. And you can imagine back then I was about 21, what that left on my mind. It was quite another achievement. And I think the biggest achievement for me in my football career in St. Lucia was playing for the national team, and on top of that, representing St. Lucia through Uptown Rebels in CONCACAF. That was, as they say, the cream of the crop. Now, with such experience, my deepest and fondest message to the youths of today, the one that are now and that are coming, is that they got to develop their minds, because the game of football has become such a business that if you cannot read, if you don't know English or can express yourself to both know what the coach is sharing with you as an individual and as a team, to know what plan that he has, because the game has become so technical and etc. that if you can't read, man, if you don't know how to write your name, stuff like that, it will be difficult for you in such competitive world of football that we are in now. And I guarantee you, with the crisis of the coronavirus, it will get even more difficult. So my advice to the youth is to try to do the best that you can in terms of, if you cannot do it on your own, get some help with your reading, your writing, because even when you sign contracts, you got to know what you're signing, because if you don't, people can take advantage of you. So reading, writing, and educating your minds. Don't listen to guys who has nothing to show or nothing to prove, but follow your guts, follow your passion, follow your love for the game. And because the game requires a lot now more than ever before. Composure and your first touch of that ball is critical. It is because of the first touch, how good it is, will decide how you make a pass, how you control the ball, how you score a goal, how you give a pass. When you get into the final third, which is the opponent's penalty area, what you're gonna do in terms of scoring a goal or kicking that ball out. Composure, reading, educating the minds, and be humble. The sport has no place or no room for egotistic maniacs, because that is a form of ignorance. You cannot bring ego in. You can bring ego into the game, but it has to be an ego where you can control, because it has to be somewhat of a balance. But I tell you, the game requires a lot more of us than ever before, especially now. And if you don't have that, you'll be kidding yourself, you'll be fooling yourself, because after all, it is the beautiful game, the game of the people. Most critical, other than reading, advice to the youths: you are got to be coachable. Be coachable, think coachable, and live coachable. Attitude. When you are coachable, 95% of the work of any coach is sealed. Take that to the bank.